Am I the A for getting upset with my wife for secretly having an abortion after I clearly stated I didn't want children? I have been happily married to my wife, Clara, for around 3 years now. I love this woman to pieces. I don't want to get sentimental, but she truly is my other half, and I cannot see myself with another woman, even now. Before we got married, I made my stance on children clear. I didn't want any. She agreed at the moment, and I thought that was that. About a year and a half into our marriage, she brings up the question of children again. She asks me if I want kids. I say no, I don't. She hums and we go back to doing what we did before. It wasn't a conversation so much as it was an odd question this time around, but I didn't think anything of it. We had a very robust sex life but always took the necessary precautions. She has the implant and I use a condom around 90% of the time, so I wasn't worried. Her bookshelf recently broke, so I ordered a new one. I had wanted to build it as a surprise and put her books up on it for when she came home. While going through them, I noticed an old journal of hers. I immediately smiled and flipped through it. When we were in college, she'd carry it around. It was a future planning notebook or sorts. If she wanted something in life, she'd draw out exactly what she envisioned, add clip-ins, the whole 9 yards. Manifestation, if you will. She had shown me it in college after declaring that she wanted to pursue her doctorate, and I remember being stunned at the attention to detail. I mean, we were only sophomores and she knew exactly what she wanted to do, what she wanted to study, and where she would take herself. It made me feel out of depth. I liked it. Anyway, I flipped through the journal, reminiscing about the past. I hadn't expected there to be any new entries, at least not anything recent that I hadn't experienced with her. But as I opened it up, I saw something I never thought I'd see. It was a section dedicated to pregnancy and baby prep. She had researched prenatal vitamins, OB/GYNs in our area, had images of cradles, etc. It was only 2 pages, but I remember feeling so sick. In my head, there was only one reason she'd put that in a journal like this. She wanted kids. Naturally, I was torn up. I kept telling myself I'd been upfront about what I wanted, and if she hadn't, that was her fault. But the thought that she'd secretly been suffering because of me, that she was holding herself back from the life she wanted to please me, I couldn't stand it. I confronted her about it as soon as we came home, and I found out the situation was a lot worse than I thought. Clara did indeed want kids, but claimed she wanted our relationship more and was okay with compromise. I asked her a million times if she was sure. I really wanted her to be honest and not feel like she had to hold anything back. She insisted that not having children wasn't a deal breaker for her, but I kept pushing. I couldn't understand why she'd put something that wasn't that important to her in that journal. In the midst of our conversation, she dropped the bomb. She told me she had an abortion a year and a half ago. Offered up the information like I should have been relieved. Like it was the proof she needed to convince me that she meant what she had said about children not being a deal breaker. I can't describe what I felt at that moment. What I'm still feeling. What I can say is that I have never blown up at my wife the way I did that night. I didn't put my hands on her. I would never put my hands on her, but it was not a pretty exchange. I just remember feeling hurt that she hadn't consulted me on such an important decision. That she went and had such a life-altering procedure without discussing it with me. That I didn't even fucking notice that it happened. I mean, those things have side effects, right? She would have been bedridden for days afterwards, in physical and emotional pain. How could I not have seen the signs? I'm still beating myself up about it. I remember her asking me if I wanted kids, but nothing about her emotional state for the rest of that week when she would have had the procedure done. How much can I really claim to care about her? I don't want children, I still don't. But I'd rather chew my left arm off than make her have an abortion, even more so now after she's told me she isn't really against having kids the way I am. I'd happily raise a kid if it meant she didn't need to go through something so drastic. I've been staying with my sister for the last week and a half. I needed space to think, so I left. I want to see her, to ask if she's okay, but I don't know what to do or say. I'm still unbelievably angry at her and at myself. I don't want to yell at her again. I think the first time around scared her pretty badly, and I don't want to repeat that. My sister thinks I'm being petty, punishing my wife for something I would have agreed with regardless. But I wouldn't have fucking agreed. I don't know. Relevant comments. OP on not considering of prioritizing his wife's preferences when she is prioritizing his decisions. Comment 1. OP. To clarify, I never once said this. If that's how my post came across, let me clear it up. If she came to me as asked to start trying for a kid, in other words, to go off birth control and stop using condoms, my answer would be no. I've always been firm in that. She's never pushed the issue, but no amount of begging would entice me to plan to have a child. Having an unplanned child, on the other hand, wasn't something we discussed. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20, but that doesn't help much here. Update. I woke up to lots amount of comments and outright hate, so I thought I'd clear a few things up. A lot of you were concerned about me snoping in Clara's journal. I met this woman when I was 6 years old. We had experienced over half of what she had written down in that notebook together. She's been letting me read her entries routinely since college, though I would read them more often back then. Like I said, I found her decisiveness incredibly attractive. But college was 6-7 years ago and times have changed. I'm not sure if she has other journals, but her use of this specific one died down as we got older, and so did my readership. I felt no qualms about picking it up and reading it that day because I quite frankly never have. This was not the first time I read that journal without her present, as I've been given express permission to do so. It was meant to be a quick trip down memory lane. I had no idea she had added more things, let alone pregnancy planning. She keeps all her old journals, sketchbooks, etc., in the same area, and this book was in that pile. You should have gotten a vasectomy. I'm not discussing my reasons for not wanting kids here, but I did discuss them thoroughly with Clara before we got married. Our reasons for not wanting children were very similar based on that initial conversation, but I guess hers wavered as time went on. How that turned me into an evil dictator that refused to hear her opinions out, I'll never understand. But I guess that's Reddit for you? I didn't get a vasectomy because I'm not sure that I won't want kids 10-15 years down the line. I am positive I don't want them at the current moment, but I'm 27. Opinions and circumstances change. Regardless of its reversibility, it's marketed as a permanent surgery. Vasectomies are covered by my health insurance, but reversals are not. It simply made no sense to invest in something I wasn't sure could be undone if I didn't want it anymore, not when Clara and I were taking the necessary precautions to avoid pregnancy otherwise. She got on birth control way before we started having sex. I had absolutely nothing to do with that decision. As far as I know, she's quite happy with it. The chances of pregnancy with the implant are less than 1%, even less when using condoms as well. We talked about the decision together and ultimately decided a vasectomy wasn't the right choice. Someone actually went as far as to say that because I didn't get my vas deferens cinched, an unexpected pregnancy was inevitable. A 0.5% chance and inevitable are two vastly different things. You guys do realize that vasectomies aren't 100% effective either, right? Unless you're pushing for abstinence, I really don't want to hear it. We also don't go raw unless we both agree to it, which I would never pressure her to do. You verbally abused her. Clara and I both grew up in shitty homes. Our parents yelled and were extremely combative. After growing up in that environment, we agreed to avoid that kind of behavior in our relationship, and we do our best to keep to that. I have never raised my voice at her before this argument. I'm more on the timid side, so I imagine it was a shock for her to see me so angry. She also just doesn't do well with yelling in general. It wasn't my words, so much as it was my tone. Should I have raised my voice? No, but I'm not an infallible robot. My comment about not putting my hands on her was to draw conclusions away from physical violence. Clearly it wasn't taken that way and had the opposite effect. The exchange was heated on both sides, lots of things were said. It was the worst disagreement we have ever had, and we have been together for close to a decade, close friends for even longer. That being said, I still think it was on the tamer side of the overall spectrum, relative to other people. That spectrum might be a bit skewed due to my childhood, but take that as you will. You're a dick for leaving her for a week and a half. To be fully clear, this was a mutually respected decision. I told her I needed space to think. She suggested I take it outside the house. Granted, she wasn't the happiest when she said it, but we had just finished a heated argument. We texted the entire time I was at my sister's place. Very dull and mundane conversation, mostly pleasantries, but I didn't just abandon her. We weren't speaking audibly, but we weren't in contact. I don't know how else to phrase that. Things were just tense and very different from our usual level of interaction. Everything was surface level. We would check to make sure the other ate, showered, whatever else, but that was it. There was no continuation of our discussion while we were apart. We were both taking the time to make sure we were in the right headspace to have a proper conversation, as is common for our relationship. It just took me a bit longer to get there. She wouldn't have been bedridden. Abortions aren't that deep. I'll concede to the physical aspect of this. I've often heard them described as a bad period, and a lot of the women in my life tend to tap out during their monthlies, which is what I based my assumption on. I accept that it was incorrect. Though I'm not sure if I should, because half of you agreed with my take in the post, condemning me for not noticing, and the other half told me I was overreacting. Again, I guess that's Reddit for you. More importantly, I will not agree on the general take on the emotional aspect. At the time, I still did not believe Clara genuinely wanted to have an abortion after hearing her updated stance on having kids. I imagined her feelings would be on par with someone who experienced a miscarriage rather than an abortion because of this. I still do. The only thing that would change my mind at this point is Clara herself. You should go to couples counseling and seek therapy individually. We are both in different types of talk therapy and have been for several years. I'm not sure how helpful couples therapy would be on top of that, but I'm not opposed to it. Asking if you wanted kids was enough, she doesn't owe you anything. Reading through the comments, many of you thought this, and we're simply going to have to disagree. As the father of the child, the decision to abort should not have been made without my clear and explicit knowledge that she was pregnant. We weren't separated at the time, nor did I cheat, and contrary to popular belief, I'm not abusive. I deserve to know. I won't apologize for expecting my wife to consult me on family planning decisions. I'd do the same for her 10 times over if roles were reversed. Call it controlling. I really don't care. Asking if I want kids is a completely different discussion than terminating a pregnancy. I am on my way home now and will update if the situation changes, likely sometime this week. I'd ask for well wishes, but I think it's clear none of you are rooting in my favor. Fucking hell. Edit. Took out the numbers to prevent text from looking long and blocky. Final update. Before I got into where Clara and I are now, a lot of you had some misconceptions concerning things like me reading Clara's journal, vasectomies, and other things. I made a separate post addressing those. Read it, don't, whatever. I came home the morning following my initial post and Clara and I had a very long conversation. We both apologized for letting the previous conversation get out of hand and acting out of character. I also explained why I left in the first place and apologized for raising my voice. She's especially sensitive to that kind of thing, so I addressed it first. She forgave me and said as long as we could keep things calm this time around it would be okay. She was more interested in finding out what I was so deep in thought about that I was gone for so long. Again, we do take breaks from conflicts from time to time and revisit them when we're calmer, though this was the first one where I physically removed myself from her proximity. I told her how I initially felt after reading her journal entry. I hadn't been mad then. Part of me was confused. We had agreed on no kids before getting married after all. The other half was riddled with anxiety. Contrary to what you may all think, I adore Clara. She is quite honestly one of only good things this life has given me. I didn't want to lose her, but if she wanted kids badly enough to put them in her journal, I wasn't sure what that would mean for us. She downplayed the importance of the entry. In her view, not everything she puts into the journal is something she's genuinely hoping for. Some things are just nice to fantasize about, and not every fantasy is meant to be reality. I was honest. I told her that her words were hard to believe given how meticulously she had written everything down and planned it out. The last thing I wanted was for her to harbor resentment over what her life could have been. She assured me that wasn't the case, but I'm still unsure. Talking about the abortion itself was hard on both of us. I wanted to know if she was in pain, what signs I had missed. I didn't really press for details on the procedure, but we talked a lot about how she felt afterwards, why she hid it and how she came to her decision. I just held her in my arms and listened for the most part. It was gut-wrenching to say the least. It turns out that the second time she had asked if I wanted kids occurred a month or two after she had already had the procedure done. She had asked because she was contemplating whether or not to tell me about it. I guess she had ultimately decided not to. She told me I was actually with her the day she took the pills. I remembered the day because she had been crying and I wasn't sure why. When I asked, she cited cramps, so I got her a heating pad and laid down with her. Her periods have always been pretty hard on her, so I guess I didn't think much of it. In hindsight, I should have realized something was up because she hasn't had bad cramps in years. Still, I'm glad she didn't go through it completely alone. Much later that day, I asked her why she didn't come to me when she realized she was pregnant. In her eyes, she was protecting our relationship. She knows our circumstances, my reasons for not wanting kids, my stance on abortion. She didn't want to burden me with having to choose between the two, and so she made the choice herself. As hard as I try, I can't understand or accept her reasoning. Her decision to go through this alone, while meant to shield me, inadvertently communicated that she doesn't trust me to support her or handle the truth. All I understood is that she feels like she can't lean on me when she's in trouble. And if that's the case, I'm not sure why we're married. She's always been independent, but this is the first time I've felt completely blindsided by not being included. I asked up and down if I'd given her a reason to doubt me, to doubt my commitment to her. If she felt I wasn't a reliable partner, etc. She said no, but that just makes all this harder to grasp. She said she was afraid saying anything would change how I viewed her, our relationship, but I'm having a hard time distinguishing insecurity, anxiety from reasonable doubt. I asked her if she knew I loved her, how much I care for her, the lengths I would go to make her happy, etc. She laughed a little and reminded me of a line from my wedding vows. We shared private vows before our ceremony and I had said quite a bit. I was a little shocked that she remembered that portion at all, let alone word for word. We transitioned to talking about the promises we made to one another, and just times in our relationship where we had complete trust, faith in one another. It helped put us both in better moods and ended the night on a lighter note for both of us. We're doing okay at the moment. Not quite where we were before, but getting there. Everything's still incredibly raw, including our eyes. We both broke down 5 minutes into the conversation. Clara is against couples counseling right now. I'm ambivalent, as we're still working a couple of things out on our own. I'm not sure how helpful a third party asking what steps we're willing to take to improve trust and transparency will really be, but I'm open to anything at this point. We're not leaving one another. Issues or not, we both think it's clear that there's still an abundance of love between us, and we don't want to throw that away. Some of you will be happy to know that Clara and I decided on a new rule for ourselves. Clara was a lot more upset about my leaving than she initially let on. From now on, the distance between the top and bottom floors of our home is all the space either of us are allowed to take. We need to cool our heads. If proximity really does become an issue, the max either of us are allowed to stay outside the house is 48 hours. So no more week-long stays at my sister's. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. After my fiancé's shocking comment about my late wife at family dinner, I'm questioning our engagement to protect my kids. For background, I am 43M and had 2 children, Sam, 21M, and Liz, 16F, with my late wife Kayla. Our children were 10 and 15 when Kayla died. I won't go into details, but she was hit by an intoxicated driver on her way home from work. She was the true love of my life, and our family was devastated by her departure. For the benefit of my children, I made a self-promise to wait at least a few years before dating again. I met Amanda, who is now my fiancée, 3 years after Kayla's death. We took our time, and it wasn't until we had been dating for a year or so that I introduced her to my children. We are now engaged after 3 years of dating. Although they are not particularly close, Amanda and my children get along well and show each other respect. Amanda has never gone too far or attempted to take their mother's place. When we first started dating, Amanda was a little insecure about my being a widower. She frequently asked me if I would still be with Kayla if she hadn't died during those initial months. She finally stopped bringing up the what-ifs when I reminded her that I didn't like to think about them and kept my responses succinct. Let's get to the problem. Recently, my parents celebrated our engagement with a family supper. My parents, my late wife's sister and her husband, my 2 children, Amanda and I were all present. With everyone engaging in small talk and talking about their wedding plans, the dinner was going well. About halfway through, my mother commented on how pleased she was that, like Kayla, I had discovered a fresh spark with someone else. Until Amanda chuckled and remarked, "I'm glad she died, otherwise I would have never gotten him to myself." I don't think anyone gave much thought to the sincere remark. The dinner's atmosphere instantly changed. Everyone, especially my children, grew tense. As though it were a joke, Amanda appeared to notice the abrupt change and made an embarrassing attempt to laugh it off. Since that was the first time she had ever said something like that, I was really completely frozen. Liz stood up and walked out to the car while my children stared in horror. I was still in shock, but Sam lingered a little longer, as though he was waiting for me to speak. In other words, the supper was essentially spoiled. We all headed home after I hastily bid farewell to everyone and gathered Amanda. 3 days have passed since my daughter last spoke to Amanda or me. I asked my kid what he felt I should do because I was getting sick of the silence. As an adult, I don't care who another adult marries, but I don't want a woman who talks like that about our mother around my sister, he told me. His remark lingered with me, and I'm now thinking about ending the engagement. Although she has never said anything like this before, I'm concerned that if I ignore it this once, it will happen more often and have an impact on my daughter. I just want to do what's good for my kids, therefore I need some outside input. What if her remark caused me to call off our engagement? Edit. Whoa, after posting this, I never thought I'd receive that much advice so fast. I appreciate all of your comments, including those who referred to me as a bad father. I believe that what you said helped me get my head out of the sand. Before talking to my fiancé tonight, I'll attempt to have a private conversation with my kids. We'll see where it goes from there. However, I believe that my fiancé and I are no longer together. I'll provide an update on the progress of the conversations with everyone later tonight or tomorrow. Again, I want to thank you all for helping me to straighten out. Edit 2. I attempted to amend this post, but it was not accepted. First update. During the dinner party, did my fiancé apologize to anyone? No, she didn't. To be honest, I don't think she even realized, or has realized, that what she said was incorrect. 2. Is social anxiety a problem for my fiancé? I'm not aware of it. She has never displayed symptoms of social anxiety in the time I've known her, and she has no past history of the condition. 3. What was my late wife's age? We were the same age as Kayla, who was 37 when she went away. Amanda is 41 years old now. Many people wanted to know when Amanda and I first met, as well as the timing of Kayla's death. I met Amanda around 3 years after Kayla's death, and she has now been gone for about 6 years. I didn't initially bring up their ages since I didn't think it was important, but I can see why others might be interested. Here's the complete update now that I've answered the most common queries I received. The day after I spoke with my children, I am writing this update. Since my fiancé works evenings most days of the week, she departed for work at approximately 5:30 last night. I called my son and asked if he could come over and chat with his sister and me. He lives in an apartment close to his school and attends a nearby college. He chose to live a few blocks from campus when he started college because he wanted to move out yet still be near us. I called him and his sister into the living room to speak when he got there. After they were both seated, I bluntly informed them that I no longer believed the wedding was going to take place and that Amanda's remark was inappropriate. I apologized to them, as I was advised to do here. I apologized to them for allowing the stress to rise in our home and for not dealing with it sooner. I told my daughter that I understood why she hadn't contacted me and that I was sorry for letting her believe that I approved of anything Amanda said. After we got back from that dinner, I felt quite cowardly and wanted to do everything in my power to mend my relationship with my children. My daughter told me throughout the conversation that she was outraged by Amanda's remark, and I was much more offended when I didn't instantly stand up for her mother. She went on to say that for the 2 years she has known Amanda, she has sensed that she has been attempting to gradually distance herself and Sam from me. Liz used the time my son moved out to begin his sophomore year of college as an example. Amanda was the one who jumped at the chance to move out when he brought it up. Liz claims that the person who encouraged Sam to move out the most was Amanda. To be clear, I never opposed Sam leaving home, but I did let him know that he was free to stay at home while he was in college and even after that until he found a place that suited him. I questioned Sam about if he moved out because he felt pushed out by Amanda. He claimed that before telling everyone he intended to move, he hadn't felt pressured. But after he made the announcement, my fiancé persisted in pressuring him to do so. Every time she mentions college, Amanda keeps pushing her to go out of state. Liz interrupted. Liz has made it clear that she wants to attend the institution Sam is now enrolled in and has no plans to go out of state. According to Liz, Amanda seems to be waiting for her to graduate from high school and enroll in college so that she may move out as well. Many of the comments were correct when they said that Amanda's subtle remarks eventually led to her attempting to drive my children away from me. Liz expressed her concern that too much damage would have been done between us by the time I finally realized how Amanda was acting. I apologized to my children for the delay in my realization and for making them walk on eggshells for so long. I gave them a hug and told them that they are my first concern, not Amanda or anybody else. I made sure to let Sam know that I will always be there for him and his sister, even when they are far into adulthood, because several comments mentioned that my kid still needs his father even though he is grown. About 2 hours passed during the entire chat. It was emotional for all of us, and we covered a lot of terrain. To put it briefly, Amanda and I are finished. I've made it a point to explain to my children that Amanda, as an adult, is accountable for her words and that none of this is their responsibility. Right now, my kids and I are getting along okay, but they haven't completely returned to trusting me, and it's likely that they won't for some time. That's perfectly acceptable to me. All I want is for my children to feel at home. I intend to speak with Amanda tomorrow as she has the day off from work. In addition, I want to give my mom a call to find out why she felt it was acceptable to bring up Kayla at the dinner. My kid is staying with Sam tonight and tomorrow night because I don't want her here when everything goes wrong. I'm not happy with how things turned out with Amanda, but I'd rather have happy, healthy children than a wife again. That's where I am at the moment. I appreciate all of the guidance and even the harsh words, everyone. After I cancel with Amanda, I'll provide another update. Second update. Alright everyone, the long-awaited update is finally here. My kids and I had spoken, made amends, and my daughter was staying with her brother to be clear of the drama surrounding my now ex-fiancé when we last spoke. I called my mom to inform her of the issue before facing the worst portion of the day, breaking it up with Amanda. Many of the comments advised me not to be critical of my mother's remark. After giving it some thought, I understood that my mother's remark about Amanda was meant as a compliment, which was verified when we spoke on the phone. Bless her heart, my mother felt terrible about the whole thing and thought it was all because of her one remark. I reassured her that she had never been held responsible for any of this and that she was not at all to blame for the circumstances. Before I let her go, we continued our conversation. At approximately 9:15 a.m., the call ended, and I was left to wait for Amanda to awaken. I waited until approximately 11:10 a.m. to seat her down for a conversation because I didn't want to surprise her by waking her up at 10:30 a.m. I had my phone set to record in my back pocket because many commenters suggested surreptitiously recording the chat, which I thought was a good idea. Although I didn't anticipate her trying anything extreme, it's better to be careful than sorry. The conversation went about as well as you might think, that is, not at all. We sat in the living room after I assured her that we had to talk and that it was serious. As we sat down, I started talking about the remark she made about Kayla at my parents' house. How it affected my kids, how it made me feel, and why she didn't apologize or acknowledge it. I informed her that I expected her to apologize to my in-laws, parents, and, above all, my children. Amanda didn't show much emotion during my entire conversation, with the exception of her eyes being a little wider than usual. She asked me directly after I was done, "So if I apologize to everyone, will we go back to normal?" I bluntly told her, "No." I clarified that there were other problems besides the remark she made at dinner. She was trying to do the same with Liz, I informed her, and I knew she had put a lot of pressure on Sam to move out when he wasn't even sure about it. Despite my best efforts to keep my children out of it, I told her that the primary reason I no longer saw a future with her was the way my children described how she treated them. Amanda remained mute until I informed her that we were finished. Panic seemed to start at that point. She insisted repeatedly that she would make amends with my children and apologize to everyone. I told her that we were done even though I would appreciate any apology. By this time, she was crying uncontrollably and asked why I wasn't willing to try to mend our relationship. I told her that although I still loved her, I couldn't risk my children suffering the same kind of harm again. I became irate and questioned her about why she was forcing my children to leave their own house. I was really caught off guard by her reaction, but many commenters were right on the money about who she really is. "Well," said Amanda, "I had no idea you expected me to spend the rest of my life housing someone else's children." I became enraged. I told her to go after a minute or so. I made it plain that my children could travel anywhere they wanted to, especially in a home that I paid for and owned. After attempting to argue, she packed her luggage and went to stay with a friend. As a precaution, I sent myself a copy of the phone recording via email. I have everything I need to keep my name clear, even though the talk was only around 25 minutes long, not quite as long as the conversation with my kids. I've contacted my kids to let them know that Amanda is permanently gone, to let them know that they may return home at any moment, and to let my son know that he can move back in fully if he wants to. I still have to call my parents and in-laws to apologize for this chaotic scenario, and my daughter is returning from her brother's house in the afternoon. Even when Amanda is not at my house, she keeps calling and urging us to attempt to resolve the issue. She is not welcome to live here again, but I will allow her to visit in the coming days so she may get the other items. To tell the truth, I am a little devastated. I still adore Amanda in spite of everything she did, and I doubt I will for some time to come. But I'll be alright. I just want to utilize this as a chance to strengthen my relationship with my children and concentrate on the family that needs me right now. I want to thank everyone again for your assistance in the comments. Making amends with my family was made possible in large part by the guidance you provided. Update 3. To be honest, everything that happened seems like it happened ages ago, which makes me realize how old I am. I'm 44 now, heh. Sam will turn 22 soon, and Liz turned 17 a few months ago. Since I ended my relationship with Amanda, my life has actually been rather calm. I'll briefly review my most recent update, which was posted nearly a year ago. Amanda spent almost a week at her friend's house after our conversation. I used that time to pack up her clothes and other little belongings, as suggested by the comments. I made sure that the only things she needed to come into the house for were the larger items, like chairs and decor. As numerous commenters advised, I also had the locks replaced. I appreciate that you all considered items like the locks that I had not even considered. After that, I was surprised to find that everything proceeded really swiftly and pleasantly. She stopped by, gathered her belongings, and gave me the ring even though I didn't want it back. It was quiet and we didn't talk much, but that didn't last. She began stalking me on social media a few weeks later in an attempt to get another shot. Her antics had worn me out by that point, so I blocked her, and my children followed suit. Many critics were right when they said that I didn't truly love her, but rather who I believed she was. It greatly eased the transition. It's been over a year since my kids and I blocked her, and she hasn't spoken since, so I'm sure it will continue to be that way. I've come to the realization that I'm completely content to remain alone for the rest of my life as a result of this entire circumstance. That may be depressing to others, but it's more about acceptance to me. My decision to break up with Amanda helped me realize that I didn't love her as much as I loved Kayla, and I doubt I ever will. Neither I nor anyone I might date would be treated fairly by it. With my family by my side, I'm happy. I now have a greater respect for my children as a result of this event. My love for them has grown even more as a result of their maturity and understanding, something I never thought possible at their age. Heh. Sam's flat is still there. He denied my offer to move back in because he truly appreciates having his own bachelor pad, which I can understand because I was in his position once. Since the second semester of this year, he has been doing a part-time job that he truly enjoys. Although I'm not positive, I feel that he might have met someone because I know my child. Liz is enjoying the summer before her final year and is fantastic as always. I'm quite pleased of her because she made the honor roll every year of high school, including this year. When I consider how hardworking and genuinely excellent both of my children are, I find it difficult to keep from boasting. I'm sorry for talking endlessly about them in this post, but I adore them and can't stop talking about them. Other fathers can probably identify. Hey. I want to express my gratitude once more to everyone who has been following my story and giving me all of your wonderful, and not so great, advice. Additionally, be aware that I have read your own accounts of such occurrences in the comments. I apologize that many of you lack the network of support that I have been able to provide for my children. I wish I could give all of you gigantic dad hugs for taking the time to share your own tales. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
Am I the A for not letting my stepson 12 live with us? I don't want anyone to interfere in my life, and the child is unnecessary in my marriage. I have 2 boys, 10 male and 5 male, and I'm getting married in the next few weeks to my boyfriend who has a 12 son from a previous relationship. My future husband's son asked his dad if he could come live with us after we get married because he wants to experience a genuine family dynamic with parents and siblings, given that his biological parents never married anyone else. My husband is on board with this idea, believing it would contribute positively to the boy's personal growth. I expressed to my husband that I have reservations about having him live with us, based on observations during the weekends he spends at our place. Firstly, he appears to have a strained relationship with my younger son. He rarely includes him in activities unless I specifically prompt him to do so. When I ask him to assist the younger boy, such as accompanying him to the bathroom, he does so with obvious reluctance. Secondly, he displays an excessive competitive streak towards my older son. He consistently aims to outperform him, and even taunts him when he succeeds. I find this overly competitive atmosphere uncomfortable. I desire my children to grow up in a nurturing and supportive environment. The third and most significant concern is his academic and behavioral performance. My boyfriend has informed me that his son has been struggling academically and has faced minor behavioral challenges. I am concerned about his potential negative influence on my children, particularly my older son. My husband dismisses these concerns as typical for his age, believing that with our guidance, he could improve. I sought advice from my mother, and she disagrees with me, asserting that providing a united family environment could greatly benefit my stepson. Both of them label my reasons as unreasonable. Am I the A? Edit. Many people didn't quite catch the bathroom example I provided. Let's say we're at a park. I can't let my 5-year-old go to the bathroom alone. So I might have my stepson accompany him for safety reasons. It's the kind of thing an older child should do for a younger one. Update. I know that I am not the best person, but I never mistreated or ignored my future stepson. I care for him, and I would never think of hurting him. I realize now that I was being overly protective of my own children and not considering things from my future stepson's perspective. I was afraid that my future stepson might bully my kids. For example, excluding the younger one from activities he enjoys like building with Legos or teasing the older one when he wins, but now I can see that if he wants to live with us, it's because he cares about his future siblings. Moreover, as a responsible adult, I understand that I have an obligation to help him with behavior and school grades. I talked to my boyfriend, and I accept that he can come live with us. Now we'll need to move to a new house so that each child can have their own room, and we'll have to work on getting custody. Relevant comments. Info on stepson's mom. Unfortunately, my stepson is the result of a one-night relationship, not a marriage. My fiancé said he even tried to have a dating or more serious relationship with her, but she declined. She has always had custody of the boy, and she has never been married. It's just her and the boy. I work remotely, so even though I have work obligations, I'll be the one providing more assistance to the children. I don't see it as a problem, even with one more child. He lives with his mom, who has full custody. He seeks my fiancé to ask if he can live with us because he wants to have a family with siblings. I don't know his mom very well. I only met her a few times, like on his birthday. After the update. We're going to talk to him and his mom tonight. I'm going to tell him that our house is his home, and he's more than welcome here. We're going to say that we are even planning to move to a new house to give him his own room. But it also depends on the conversation with his mom. My fiancé thinks we won't have any issues. OP is voted you're the A. This sums up the majority opinion well. You're the A. You're marrying his father, so you should start considering him as your son as well. If your eldest son, 10 male, started displaying all these behaviors, then surely you wouldn't just kick him out and give up on him. I would get your BF on board with ways to deal with the behaviors that you're not happy with. Update post. I initially want to thank the comments that helped me understand that I was in the wrong. I learned that I was being extremely selfish, only looking out for my own children and my fear that they might somehow face bullying at home, but I wasn't considering the feelings of my stepson. I've also learned that the dynamics between siblings, something I never experienced, inevitably involve a bit of competition and rivalry. I was so focused on myself and my kids that I couldn't see that if he wants to live with us, then obviously he cares about us, especially the idea of having siblings. So I hope we will work together to build a great dynamic in our house. I talked to my fiancé, even showed him this Reddit post, and told him that I agree our stepson should live with us, that I was wrong about my reservations concerning the boy. He talked to the mother of my stepson, who has legal custody of him. I didn't participate in the conversation, as I understand it's a moment for the biological parents. Despite being reluctant, after hearing from her own child that he wanted to live with us, she agreed to work out an arrangement where he will spend a significant amount of time with us. My fiancé and the boy's mother will still have to discuss the details. After that, my fiancé and I took my stepson out to eat his favorite burger and talked. I told him that we're happy to have him as a new member of our household, that we're going to look for a new house to better accommodate the family now that we'll be 5. And he can have his own room. He was very happy. We didn't address some concerns that I still have, like the issue of discipline and following rules. I avoided that topic so it doesn't seem like I'm threatening him to go back to living with his mom. I want him to feel accepted unconditionally in our home. But of course, we'll have that conversation about discipline with the older two soon to prevent any issues, and also emphasize the importance of maintaining good grades in school. P.S. There's no need for anyone here to send me messages cursing me out. I've received dozens of offensive messages, and it doesn't help anyone. I've also received supportive messages with advice, and I appreciate those messages. The internet and this community don't need to be a place for hate. Relevant comments. You need to discuss discipline as soon as possible to be on the same page. I'm aware of that. This issue has always been one of the key points for me. I always believe that when a child is disciplined by a step-parent, they might perceive it as unfair, which can significantly impact the relationship between the child and the step-parent. However, we've discussed making a list of rules and the corresponding consequences for breaking each rule, so I hope that no one feels unjustly treated. If something comes up that isn't on the list, then the decision will need to be a joint one between me and my fiancé. OP's stance. I've always told my fiancé that if my stepson came to live with us, then it would be for the rest of our lives, as my stepson isn't an object that we can return for some reason. I've always had that very clear. He was always a member of the household, you're the new one. Honestly, I think the issue here is just the choice of words. When I said member of our household, my fiancé and my stepson understood that I was referring to him becoming a new resident of the house, as he didn't live here before. Regardless of whether you agree or not, the fact is that he lived at his mother's house, and in practice was a visitor at ours. Of course, I did everything to make him feel that our house was also his, but there's a difference between living here and spending weekends. I never meant to say that he wasn't a part of the family. I've always treated him as a family member. This is a part I haven't quite grasped yet. Many people talk as if I treat my stepson poorly. When my husband read the comments on the other post, He told me not to worry, because I treat his son very well, and I think it's obvious that if I mistreated him, he wouldn't want to live with me. So, where does this idea come from that I treat him poorly? I know that when I said that I didn't want him living with us sounds rude. But there is a huge difference between how you treat a kid and what you discuss with your fiancé. Further info on the housing situation. It's still his own house. I completely agree with this, which is why I mentioned that I did everything to make him feel like the house was his too. But there's an aspect I didn't mention, and perhaps it's another reason for my choice of words. My fiancé is moving into the house I live in with my kids, so chronologically, it makes sense for me to refer to it as my house, and say that my stepson is a new member of it. Of course, from his perspective, we are the new members of his family. Child's perspective is very different and very insightful. Yes, that's true. The best I can do is treat my stepson the same way I treat my own children. And I don't believe there have been any instances where I treated him differently. In fact, I realized I was expecting behaviors from him similar to those of my older son, without considering his different experiences, which made me unfair to him. Does stepson have his own room? Are you spending enough time with him? This is a very important point. I completely agree that it's crucial for children of divorced parents to understand that they have two homes, and to have their personal belongings in both. The thing is, we've been gradually adapting over time. First I got to know my stepson, then he got to know my kids, and then they started spending more time together, until it got to the point where he practically spends every weekend here, even though legally, my fiancé only has custody every other weekend. He always had his things at his dad's house. But my house is bigger and my fiancé is moving in here. Unfortunately, my house only has 3 bedrooms, mine and one for each child. So he was left without his own space. When he comes over, he has to sleep in my older son's room. So in reality, he's been kind of like a visitor, you know? That's the reason I'm looking for another house. I want to give him his own space, just like my kids have theirs. Yes. I understand that my stepson isn't in the best situation right now. We were already looking to move to a new house after getting married, regardless of whether he would come to live with us or not, precisely because of this issue. But we were both planning to sell our houses to buy the new one, so it would still take several months. Now, we'll be renting a house in the next few weeks. Since we were already exploring the real estate market, we already know of a house that we like. Clarifying the bathroom example above. I never used him for free childcare. I was unfortunate in the example I gave about the bathroom, but I'll explain again what happens. We have a young child who's 5 years old. I can't expect a 5-year-old to behave in a mature appropriate manner at all times, but I can expect the older ones, age 10 and 12, to understand that the 5-year-old is a little child who doesn't yet grasp various situations. So, for instance, if the older two are playing video games for an hour without letting the little one join in, it's obvious they need to stop and let the little one play a bit too. Otherwise, the little one will feel sad and angry, think that his siblings don't like him, and so on. I'm not asking them to play with the little one all the time, but to look at the situation from the little one's perspective so as not to hurt him. In the bathroom situation I mentioned last time, it was just me, my stepson, and my youngest son. When my youngest son is with any of the boys, he refuses to go to the bathroom with me. That day, he was practically on the verge of tears, not wanting to go with me and wanting to go with his brother. So in my view, my stepson, upon seeing the boy almost in tears over a trivial situation, should have understood he should help to prevent him from actually crying. But he only helped after I insisted a lot. Anyway, I believe my stepson will grasp this dynamic soon, just like my older son already does. You need to adjust your expectations. You need to adjust your expectations. You are correct. Now to the next story, story 2. I have had enough of my stepdaughter, so I moved back to my parents with my son. I'm also 8W pregnant, and I don't know what to do. Update. Hi everyone. I don't know if this is even ethical because it's about a minor. I will keep it anonymous and hope for the best. I am at the end of my tether here and I feel paralyzed and in desperate need of advice. I, female 38, met my husband, male 44, about 4 years ago. I'm 8 weeks pregnant, only husband and I know. I have a son, male 8, with my BF who passed away in a car accident before my son was born. My husband has a daughter, female 13, stepdaughter for stepdaughter, from a previous marriage. My stepdaughter lives with us every other week. When we got married, my ex-wife tried everything to get full custody of stepdaughter and failed. But it was made very clear to me, by stepdaughter, ex-wife and husband, that I am not her mother and am not allowed to participate in raising her. Stepdaughter basically ignored me and my son for weeks. It wasn't perfect, but it wasn't hurting anyone directly. My son learned very early not to cross stepdaughter and kept to himself when she was around. I suspected the ex-wife behind stepdaughter's coldness towards me and thought this must be hard for stepdaughter with all these changes. I tried to befriend her over the years, but she wasn't having it. It got worse when my ex-wife remarried and got pregnant with twins 2 years ago. She started ignoring stepdaughter, trying to get my husband to have her more, we happily obliged, and basically stopped being a mother to her. It didn't help either that the new husband didn't like stepdaughter and wasn't shy about not wanting to raise another man's daughter. I asked my husband if we could take stepdaughter full-time and try to raise her because I saw that her mental health was deteriorating and that she needed stability. The ex-wife blatantly refused this suggestion, so we continued with it every other week. The twins were born about a year ago and all went downhill from there. It seemed like the worse stepdaughter had it at her mom's, the more she hated me and my son. She would throw fits a couple of times every time she's with us. Break our stuff. Call me a bitch if I tried to tell her off. It's her house because her father bought it and we're just guests. She would yell at my son and she even hit him a couple of times, telling him to keep to his room if he didn't like her treatment of him. When I told her not to put her hand on my son, she told me, "What are you going to do about it?" My son grew fearful of her and would ask me to take him to Grandpa, late BF's father, when she's living with us. I talked to my husband about it. I told him stepdaughter needed professional help because she's not feeling well and she's making us miserable when she's around. So she started to go to therapy. 6 months now. Other than that, my husband didn't know what to do either. If he tried to talk to her about being nice to us, she played innocent and told him she was playing around and hugged and kissed my son in front of him. And if he tried to be stern, she threw a tantrum and accused him of loving my son more than her. 3 months ago, my son's grandpa passed away. This hit my son and me very hard. My son was inconsolable for many weeks and couldn't really understand what it meant that he couldn't see Grandpa again. Grandpa was a carpenter. So was my late BF. So from a very young age my son loved hanging with him in the garage, working. Many times when he's there he comes home with something they made together. Butter knives, boxes, chessboards. And for my 38th birthday last summer I got a stool that my son designed himself and built with his grandpa and then painted. This was the last project they had together since Grandpa passed away a few weeks later, so the stool was priceless to us. We had it in the kitchen. The stepdaughter made a lot of negative remarks about the stool, how ugly and poorly made it was. She laughed at my son's poor taste and he was very distraught. This was the first time, however, that my husband got very angry at her and asked her to go to her room. She was so scared of his reaction that she went without any protest. This Christmas, my stepdaughter was supposed to be with her mother. On Christmas Eve her mother dropped her off at our house very early in the morning. Her new husband had decided he didn't want her to go with them to his parents' house where they usually spend Christmas. The stepdaughter was on the verge of tears standing there listening to her mother making excuses to my husband and me. My husband hugged stepdaughter the whole time and I tried to fight away my tears. After her mom left, she went upstairs to her room to sleep. I also went to sleep since we don't usually wake up this early on holidays. When she saw me, she smirked and said she didn't want ugly furniture in her house. I pulled her away and told her to go to her room and tried to get the pieces of wood out of the fireplace. That was when she threw a scalding hot liquid in my face. It was hot cocoa. I yelled in pain and my son started panicking, so I ran to him to tell him that I was fine. The stepdaughter stood there laughing. I took my son upstairs and went back to her. I grabbed her hard in her arm and started pulling, pushing and dragging her up to her room and locked the door. Husband came home with my parents moments later. My mom took me to the emergency room and my son insisted on coming with me. I had second-degree burns on my cheek and neck. When I went home, my husband was so mad at me for assaulting stepdaughter by using force to get her to her room. He told me I should have had compassion knowing how hurt she was by her mother's abandonment. I told him that I have had enough with this. I am living a nightmare 1 or 2 of my life. Having to go on eggshells in my own home whenever she's around. My son is a prisoner in his own room when she's living with us, too terrified to cross a boundary of hers. I told him that I didn't know how to handle this, and that it was a mistake from the beginning that I wasn't allowed to be a parental figure in her life with authority. He disagreed and told me that she has a kind heart and needed patience. But the thing is, I don't think she does. She targeted my son's handiwork, fully aware of its sentimental value. And my face because she always hated the fact that my husband thinks I am beautiful and is open with complimenting my eyes and smile. I didn't stay there for Christmas. I took my son and parents and went to my parents' home where I live now. My husband is in panic mode. He's been texting and calling me all the time trying to get me to move back and work things out. Stepdaughter even texted apologizing, he probably made her. But I don't know what to do. I love him so much, but I'm ashamed to say that I hate that girl. My son starts hyperventilating of the thought of living with her again. And what about my unborn baby? I feel sick of the thought of having 1-2 custody, and being at the mercy of his half-sister when it's my husband's week. This thought makes me want to have an abortion. Please tell me if there's another solution to this hell I'm living. Update. Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed the holidays. I'm overwhelmed with the support I received from you. It helped a lot. I was literally losing my mind and wasn't sure if it was wise of me to take these drastic measures. I'm sorry I didn't make an update. I just didn't think I had anything to add, plus these last weeks have been so hard. But I came here now to tell you that I have moved on with my plans. It's just hard for me to talk about it since it was a planned pregnancy and both soon-to-be ex and I were longing for him/her. It was also hard to see my soon-to-be ex broken over my decision. He thinks I have acted so fast and can't fathom how I could just throw away our life together so fast. I think he still doesn't realize the severity of stepdaughter's actions. He even had her with him when he visited me at my parents' house the first time. He wanted us to have a sit-down. When I saw her in the car, I immediately told him to drive back. He was shocked, however, when he saw the dark scars on my face. They'll fade away with time, according to the doctor. I can't help but blame myself though. It's my fault that he thought this was a sudden decision. Had I been more honest and open with him, he would have known this was hurting me and my boy for months now, years really. This blame will lie with me and me alone. I thought by keeping my mouth shut I would minimize the damage. How wrong I was. My stepdaughter is living with her grandparents full-time now, and I think it's going to be a permanent thing. Her stepdad is adamant about not having her around his children. I think this is so messed up on so many levels, but I don't know if I have a say in this. It's her parents' call, even if I think it a grievous mistake. And I can't say that I care either. My boy is doing better. He loves living with my parents. He knows he will have to change schools and he's so scared about it, but he still thinks it's great that we moved. We started therapy. In one session, the therapist tried to explain to him how stepdaughter is not feeling well, and that she needed help. He got upset and told the therapist he didn't agree with her. He told her stepdaughter isn't the only one hurting. Many kids have bad parents and that he never knew his father and lost people he loved, but still he wasn't mean to his family. I cried for days after this. I am so sorry for what I put him through. I just want to spend the rest of my life making it up to him. My beautiful baby. With Omicron, we're back to working from home, so it really doesn't matter that I live 5h from work. I work in a bank and I have talked to my boss. She will help me apply to a nearer office. I think I have covered everything. If anything major happens, I will make a new update. Thank you again for the support. You helped more than you can imagine. Ciao. Edit. We have rebuilt the stool. We couldn't make it perfect and we had to patch it in many places and repaint it. But we love it. Some explanation from OP. I'm sorry I haven't been able to answer all your questions. I wrote my update very late and went to sleep. When I woke up it was locked. I will try to answer some here soon. To be ex. And his ex got divorced because the ex cheated on him. Her relationship with the affair partner didn't last. An affair partner left her when they got busted. This happened way before soon-to-be ex and I met. But the resentment came from soon-to-be ex. Moving on. From what I understood, soon-to-be ex and his ex were planning to give their relationship a second chance right before I met him, and he allegedly changed his mind. He blatantly denies this, but I've heard it from his ex and even stepdaughter. I know I was harsh on the stepdad, simply because I don't think him to be a good human being. His reluctance towards stepdaughter started way before the twins, and even before they got married he made it clear he would prefer it if stepdaughter didn't live with them. He even tried not to have her at their wedding. But after the incident, I don't blame him, even though I know he was happy he got a reason to get rid of her now. The problem is that stepdaughter loves him and the twins. She never speaks ill about him and always praises him. When she felt hurt by them, her hatred for me increased instead. I don't know how to explain it, but I kind of understood her. My soon-to-be ex isn't an evil man. He's probably a bad parent, but I don't think he is malicious. He knew his daughter was hurting and his solution was to spoil her when she stayed with us. It didn't help either that stepdaughter saw that he loved my son and treated him well. She always accused him of favoritism, and that drove him to spoil her even more to prove that she's his first priority. A vicious circle. On the morning of Christmas Eve, when my stepdaughter was dumped at our doorstep, soon-to-be ex cried after she went to bed and felt hopeless. I think that's why he couldn't understand the severity of what she did. She had bruises from where I dragged her to her room. Getting mad would probably have been my first reaction if I didn't know the full story and my child was bruised by an adult. I'm not trying to defend him. I'm trying to understand why he reacted like he did. About my stepdaughter moving with her grandparents. I think soon-to-be ex, even though he doesn't want to admit it, is repulsed by her run. It's so sickening, but I don't think he can help it. He feels terrible about the termination, and he's on sick leave now. This is so hard for me to write, but I think this is the brutal truth. I have promised myself not to get involved or utter an opinion about this matter to him or anybody else. She's not my responsibility, and maybe it's for the best because her grandparents are decent people. Even though I don't know, more feelings of abandonment is what stepdaughter needs. I don't think she's a psychopath. She has feelings, and a lot of them, especially rage. I don't think she's faking her rage. It feels very genuine. Many accused me of being a bad mom who only reacted when I personally was assaulted. I will have to live with this guilt and make it up to my boy for the rest of my life. These few weeks have been so dark. I keep thinking that she would have hurt my son with the hot drink instead of me, and I wouldn't have had the time to prevent it because it went so fast. I can't stop beating myself up about it, and I probably deserve it. My only defense is that her violence escalated very quickly and after the twins were born. Before that, I deemed the situation to be manageable. I was wrong, and I'm so sorry I let it go for so long. I don't feel well. The termination was so hard on me because I loved and wanted the baby. This has nothing to do with my political views or beliefs. I don't live in the US or any other religious country. Where I live, abortion is a basic human right and not a political view. It was hard for me because I have longed for a baby. Please stop abusing me in the chat, calling me a murderer and whatnot, or at least do it here and not hide in the private chat. I'm going to live with my parents for a while now, even after we settle the economy and separate our finances. I feel like it's good for us. ATM. My son is so happy with them, even if he misses soon-to-be ex. He knows if he chose soon-to-be ex, it meant stepdaughter too, so he's trying to adjust to a life without his dad. We're getting a dog. He has always wanted one but couldn't because stepdaughter is allergic. I hope this answered all your questions, and thank you again for the support. Relevant comments. Commenter. OP mentioned soon-to-be ex. Feeling unwell right after mentioning pregnancy termination. My speculation would be just some negative feelings or depression about losing the prospect of losing an unborn child and correlating the cause to be his daughter, and particularly the burns she caused to OP, which he got to see the scars caused by it as a surprise when visiting her. I am assuming OP's injuries were bandaged up when she came home from the ER, and was confronted by OP and had no idea about the severity. Seems like things went from blissful ignorance to shocking realization of the current state of things around him. Some sort of a breakdown. From his life going from being married with child, stepchild, plus unborn child on the way. No more marriage. Stepchild is gone along with the wife. Discovery that bio-daughter was violent towards wife and stepson, which resulted in wife getting second-degree burns and scars on neck, dart face, and that ended up being the direct cause of termination of unborn child. Pretty much went from thinking he's got a near-perfect life to where did everyone go in the span of a...
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.